welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, as you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we'll be relaxing as per usual. Anyone pay attention to League of Legends' new song? Was it called Paranoia by Heartsteel? I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest. It praying for the death of a rock star. It's in my head. And the animations, fun, very fun and fantastic. Did I do like an analysis on the KDA once? I'm not even sure if I did when I spoke about it. I'm not really my place to say. I'm not like an animation expert or anything like that, but I thought visually it's very fun. Of course, it's quite a busy thing, but anyway, good evening everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow at 7:06 p.m. on Monday, October 23rd, 2023. Basically just to give you a bit of context, if you don't know, League of Legends is a very popular video game made by company Riot Games, who, you know, for some reason, their art department absolutely knocks it out of the park almost every single time. I'm not sure if I should say for some reason. I mean, you know, you must have a strong motivational like love and desire, I suppose, for your craft to be able to work in like, you know, these companies which. How would I put it? You know, the companies which people want to work with, you know, like video games. Like I think about it with like Disney stuff as well. Although to be fair, Disney has a very high, you know, prestige with it as well, I suppose, from an animation standpoint. I think it's sort of like a biased sample, where it's like the people who work out are going to be people who are absolutely super passionate about their job, right? That's my assumption. Anyway, so Riot Games, for whatever reason, when they foray into music, is absolutely killer. And a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago or something, 6 years ago, I can't remember, they had KDA, which, you know, most people know about because they went like pretty viral, I think. And then they followed up with Giants with True Damage, which was also pretty good, I thought. And then they had KDA again with More, which was also pretty good. And then now they've got Heartsteel Paranoia, which is also pretty good, unsurprisingly. It's almost like the art department's very consistent or something. I don't really know what the general consensus is right now. I predict, you know, I haven't seen what people's public opinion is, but I bet in the court of public opinion, people are going to immediately compare it to KDA and be like, it's not as good as KDA, and they're going to call it a flop. And then I'm going to read the comments, and I'm going to be like, why am I reading these comments again? And then I'm going to stop. And I think as you get older, I suppose, is very much the realization that you are secure enough in your own opinions for these opinionated things. I'm just like, why am I even reading this discussion in the first place? Now I'm saying this with under the assumption that people are going to be very negative about this sort of thing. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but you watch something, you know, you ever see something, you're like, I don't think the general populace is going to like this. I think it just kind of goes on not most new things nowadays, but it depends, I suppose, on the certain subsections of communities that you focus in. Some communities, especially online ones, I think, tend to be rather critical of things, you know. What I mean by that is it's hard to get an overwhelming, resounding positive, I suppose, opinion from basically targeting a subset of your most passionate audience, right? And I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly, you know. I think it's like one of those big realization things, because certainly I was someone who grew up very much online. I use the internet basically all the time, and you know, the more time you spend on the internet, the more time you think it's a reflection, I suppose, of reality. But then, you know, you go out into reality and you're like, oh, but it's not, just in the slightest. You know, most people don't even know what the heck you're talking about when you talk about stuff on the internet. Totally fair, you know, it's just a different subsection of the community. But oops, I accidentally muted myself. Unsurprisingly, on the internet, the people who are in these communities tend to be the most passionate about it, which is awesome, by the way. I don't mean that as a bad thing or anything. Like, it's great that there are communities for the most passionate of people, you know? Like, why not have, if you're super passionate about something, find a place to talk with other super passionate people about it. Like, that's just like how life should be, right? But it does also mean that people, I think, are the most critical and that sort of thing. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I guess it's sort of just like seeing things I like, especially when I was younger as a teenager, and they come out, and then being like, oh, I like this, and then like reading, you know, community responses to it, like on like YouTube comments, Reddit posts, social media, Twitter responses, etc., and seeing people be like really negative and critical about the whole thing, you know, comparisons galore, unstructured, unjustified opinions, I shouldn't say unstructured, unjustified, more like very subjective opinions being tossed around as if a definitive fact. especially on a younger, more impressionable mind like myself when I was a teenager, very much, you start to realize it kind of sways your opinion quite a lot, you know. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not holier than thou, you know, despite the fact that I'm aware of this phenomenon. It doesn't mean that I'm, you know, immune to it either. But I'm sure you've probably noticed it yourself sometimes if you ever do something. Like, you watch the movie, maybe you've after it, you're like, wow, I really enjoyed that movie. And then maybe you'll go to, like, Rotten Tomatoes and see what people think, and it's like certified rotten or something, like 40%, and then you read all the reviews about it being like, oh, you know, it's directionless, it's unstructured, it's terrible acting, etc., etc. Well, certainly those criticisms I think might be justified. For one thing, it's sometimes difficult to tell whether it is justified or whether it's not. You know, criticisms can be lobbed at many different sort of things, and if you don't take the time to dissect why the criticism is valid, or if a criticism has backing behind it, or if a criticism is subjective, then I think a lot of the times things can get lost and swayed in the court of public opinion. You know. Like, it's very easy to, like, say Animal Crossing, be like, whoa, it's revolutionary, it's one of the best games ever because of its new, fresh takes on allowing a customization, like, with absolute unparalleled freedom, I suppose, in a life simulator game, combining a cozy, casual, relaxed atmosphere with the unbridled freedom to see the world, I suppose, as you want, you know, with cute, you know, characterization and customers cute characterization and villagers to talk to. It means that all the appeal is aesthetically tied together with a neat bow. You know, it's easy to say something like that and be like, whoa, Animal Crossing must be the best game ever. But then it's also very easy to be like, Animal Crossing is like one of the worst games ever, or like even worst ones of a franchise, because, you know, the total focus on customization means that there's all the conversations of villagers are, you know, surface level. There is no depth to the entire gameplay. You have a tutorialization, and then afterwards, you know, after tutorialization, there is no end purpose, there's no end goal, there's no direction in this game. All it is a glorified giant sandbox where you don't even get the freedoms to do things as you exactly wish, because it's confined by the developer's vision, which is, you know, and then you listen to that and you might be like, oh, Animal Crossing is the worst game ever, when really both of those things have things which are objectively true, things which are subjectively true, and things which are just, you know, misrepresenting the fact, I suppose. it very much, it's a sort of thing where I'm just like, why I guess I super loved like things like video essays when I was younger, being like, oh, you know, it's getting swept up in like people's opinions and that sort of thing. But, you know, nowadays I'm much more selective when it comes to video essays, I suppose. I watch, you know, when I watch these sort of things and it's an opinion piece, I'm like, stop, pause, do I agree with this? Do I think it's justified? Do I see where this is coming from? How is it being framed, etc., etc.? Which is not always the easiest thing to do, because sometimes, you know, I want to watch a video essay, I just want to shut my brain off and listen to it, you know. And that's totally fair. But it does make it difficult, I think, sometimes to realise that your own opinions don't have to, you know, necessarily be swayed by the likes of others. At the core, basically what I'm trying to say is, at the core of it, you have your own opinions, and that's totally fine. It's totally also fine to listen to other people's opinions and criticisms and see how they stack up from your own judgments, of course. But what I'm trying to say is, like, don't lose heart of that core in the first place. If you liked a movie, turns out everyone thought it was bad, you can like that movie. Carry on liking it for all the right reasons, wrong reasons. You don't even need to write it off necessarily being like, I liked it even though it's bad, or that sort of thing. You can like it for, you know, reasons which are legitimately good. The world isn't created in black and white. It's created in not even all the shades in between. It's created in literally all the colours, even more colours than we can even see, to be perfectly honest. And these things tend to only be able to capture in certain dimensions, you know. You can only capture on so many dimensions at once. So basically what I'm trying to say is, the world is more complex than what you can ever reduce it to from your own perception or others' perception in general, you know? And even now, I suppose if you're listening to what I'm saying, you'd be like, yeah, so true, you know? Maybe don't. maybe, you know, employ that same tactics. Stop, think, how does this stack up to my own opinions? Maybe you, I keep forgetting how to say this word, mentally disagree with whatever I'm saying. Maybe you think it's complete rubbish what I'm saying, but, you know, I don't know. I suppose it's basically, you need to being able to distinguish the ideas of my opinion being changed because of not new information, but being told like a convincing argument rather than being swayed because that is the opinion I'm hearing right now. And I say this as a warning, not knowing if it even applies to you. I just know it applied definitely to me when I was younger as a teenager, and probably still applies to me now. I'm not going to pretend that, you know, me 40, like at age 40, looking at me now was like, oh man, so influenced by the world of other people. That's kind of why people have the idea that elderly people are very sort of like, you know, do what they want, right? I suppose it's the thing which comes with age, is as you get older, especially when, you know, when you're a teen, you're very conscious about what other people think of you and all that sort of things. And when you get to like as an elderly person, you're just sort of like, whatever, I'll do what I want. Who cares? I'm like 80, which is, you know, fair enough, I guess. Anyway, I don't really know where I was going with all of this, but the long and short of it is, I don't know. I enjoyed, I suppose, Paranoia, Heartsteel, but I also, watching it, I'm like, I think the public consensus is going to be lobbing a lot of criticism. Why? Because I don't think necessarily is as good as the initial hype around KDA, but also KDA is kind of like an impossible initial hype to live up to in the first place. So, you know, it's kind of an uphill battle, a Sisyphean task, one might say, and one must imagine Sisyphus happy. I don't really know where I was going with this, either. It's just, I don't know. Because on the one, this is a part where I suppose I get really divided about these sort of things. Because on the one hand, I'm just like, I get kind of annoyed. Oh, I say annoyed. Like, annoyed in a Dear Darling sense, which is not really that annoyed because it doesn't sit on my mind. But for the purpose of this conversation, pretend it's actually, you know, I've got these human emotions that I actually am genuinely annoyed at that sort of thing. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't become a very interesting conversation otherwise. Basically, everything of my life is put through a speakerphone, a megaphone, when I do any of these YouTube videos, because my life is not really that interesting. I suppose it's very average, or, you know, it's not necessarily average to me per se, but the things which I think are interesting in it aren't necessarily interesting to talk about in the same sense. But anyway, sorry. The thing that annoys, quote me, when reading like other people's reviews, I suppose, on these sort of things. It doesn't annoy me reading reviews, but I suppose it mildly annoys me reading a review, but having an opinion, I suppose, that lobbied as a fact, but also not like justified in any way. It's sort of a concept of people being like, this is just bad, when it's like, no, it's not necessarily just bad. Like, I mean, you can say it's bad, but you got to justify it to me why it's bad. You look at a piece of art, this is bad. Why is it bad? Okay, what about its composition is bad? What about its execution? What about its color choice makes it terrible? What about its composition? I've already said composition. What about its mismatch between direction and execution makes it bad? You know, tell me. Your subjective opinions, I want to hear the justifications behind them. The subjective opinions on their own aren't worth anything, really. Well, not worth anything, but they're nothing more than like a survey response. It's not a criticism. It's not got that depth of, you know, comparison. It's not got that depth of analysis to it, which I strive and long and love for. I was going to say lust for, but that's probably a little bit strong. But, you know, it's a sort of thing where you can totally go like, I see what this is doing, but I don't like it. That's totally fair. And I don't know. It's not even that big a difference being like, this is bad, and I don't like this. But it just makes more sense in my mind. I guess it's because maybe I'm taking it a little bit not too literally, but if you say it's bad, I guess it's because I'm expecting a follow-up being like, this is why it's bad for these sort of reasons. And then I can reflect upon it and be like, ooh, okay, you know, I haven't considered it necessarily from that light. Or it's like, I see what you're saying. I don't agree because of this necessarily. Or like, that I think could be further explained by this. And then it sort of stokes a discussion. While, you know, saying something like, I don't like this, doesn't stoke the same analytical discussion as it more stokes a sort of like opinionated discussion. I'll be like, oh, why don't you like this? I'm like, oh, you know, it makes me feel sad, and I don't like watching things that make me feel sad. Totally fair. And then it becomes, I guess, a reflection of it's a reflection of a character versus the creation, you know. And the mismatch between them, because a lot of people, some people will say it's bad, but do it from a reflection of the person as their character rather than a reflection of the actual creation itself. And that mismatch means that the discussion feels like stilted. It feels like it's not even got a solid foundation to work from because it's built on uneven ground, you know? So So yeah, I guess basically long and short of things is, your opinion, being able to understand your opinions are your opinions, they aren't a subjective fact. And I say this a lot because I remember when KDA More first came out, people were just like, it's bad, it's terrible, etc., which is wild because as rose-tinted glasses tend to go, people in the moment tend to say things are very bad, and then sometimes the same group of people will love to say 3 years down the line, being like, oh, it was actually so great, I always thought it was really good, or super underrated, why does no one talk about this, XYZ? Which, I don't know, I guess it feels a bit hypocritical to me. Maybe because I'm very much someone who tries to be very careful about opinions. I mean, I'm very much known for my friends for not having very strong opinions, and I think a lot of the time that's due to me being able to, because of a sort of like analytical mindset in the first place, I tend to evaluate and hold a lot of contradictory opinions at the same time, and which sort of like cancel each other out, and thus my opinion becomes quite diluted. It's not to say I don't have opinions, of course. Some things I definitely feel very strongly about, and probably would stoke a discussion, but a lot of the times I don't really care to stoke a discussion in that sense. I'm more interested in the character than necessarily the creation, but I do still have an analytical brain for the criticism of a creation in the first place. But it reminds me of KDA More, where people like hated on it like so much, thing it was like bad, and I'm just like, oh, okay, you can't just say this is objectively bad, because I think even like objectively hot take, it's an objectively good, like it's a objectively well animated like music video and that sort of thing. It's different, of course, on the first one, but I think the beauty of art is within its experimentation in the first place, being able to push boundaries and color outside of lines just to see what happens in the first place. Insert dear darling opinion about high fashion here, I suppose. I don't know when I talk about it. You can probably go find a video about it where I spoke about it in general. But people just saying it's objectively bad. It's like, you can't say that without any sort of like justified evidence behind it. Like, I don't even, like, if you say it's objectively bad, I mean, you list like, there's like these technical glitches, or like it's too samey or something, or maybe like, I'm not saying this is necessarily true, but like if there actually is a justification behind it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's it. This is what it's at, interesting discussion. Which is, I guess, as I get older, is sort of why, in a lot of the times when things get super big, I'm just like, why am I reading the comments of this? It happens to me probably, I would say about once every 2 weeks. Most of the time I talk about it, I go on like social media aggregate sites, mainly just to not get news, but mostly just to consume like creations. I go on Twitter, X, sorry, to look at like fan art, to look at cool art, to look at cool designs, etc. I go on Reddit to be like an aggregated source of like my specific interests, because it's pretty difficult to get like English translations of like Japanese games, I suppose, and the news that goes with that. Reddit is a fantastic source of that, stuff like this, But then sometimes I go into the comment section a little bit, and I go like a few comments down, and then I'm like, all right, that's cool, that's interesting enough, just to see people's reactions, and I'm out. But sometimes I find myself scrolling like even further, and then I'm like 20 comments down, I'm like, why am I doing this? I read something and I'm just like, what? And then it sort of like wakes me up from reality, and then I just don't read comments for like the next week or so on any like social media post. I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but I guess it's kind of like a very human thing in the end. Because you might be like, that's insane, that's weird. But then you probably think about it even more. And it's just like, the average person probably, doesn't in the first place, right? Think about how the average person probably uses the internet. And if you're watching this video, the chances are you're probably not considered an average person with relationship to your dynamic with the internet in the world, right? Because I'm sure the people who watch my videos are not unfairly biased, but much more biased to be people who use internet far more than the average person, right? The average person, you gotta think about the fact the average person ranges all the way from like 10 to 100, or 0 to 100. I don't know why I didn't include babies, but I guess babies don't really use the internet. Most people probably just see something and that's it. They don't even. Some people, like, I wouldn't be surprised if most people don't even really know how to find the comments on a lot of social media posts. Crazy, huh? But that's it, I guess it's kind of grounding, I don't really know where I was going with this. But basically, the long and short is, I like Heart Still Paranoia. What if I go to it right now? If the first comment is saying this is objectively bad, then I'm just going to be like, this has proved my point. But I don't want it to be. I want it to be hype. Aphelios wins with his little bell. That's hype. Thumbs up. That's okay. Song's hype, but I'm confused. Doesn't seem like a vocals match a video. That's fair. That's a fair criticism. That was also what I was thinking. You know what? Thumbs up for you two. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to, you know, quit while I'm ahead. I'm reading that. I don't know. It might be glowing reviews for all I know. All I know is, at the end of the day, all I want to do is listen to the song. So, does that really change anything? I guess not. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this episode off here. I don't know what I'm talking about. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord. Below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time. Bye-bye for now. I guess I just kind of don't like complaining for complaining's sake. You know? I don't know. Thoughts are difficult to untangle sometimes.